The first tap of a conductor's wand. The first rivet in a mile-high tower. The master link at the genesis of a never-ending chain. The moment a single empty canvas meets a singular master stroke. There is no one thing. Because now, there are many. Because soon, there will be more. Because one is ever the beginning. Like the first link in an infinite chain, or the first rivet in the tallest skyscraper. The master stroke is found in the masterpiece. What will you begin?
Welcome to World Blockchain Roundtable. I'm your host, John Branch, and we are here with episode 112. And we will be talking about the Hinman emails. But to get things going, let's introduce our panel. We have Distant, aka joining us today.
Hey, that's me.
We've got Joe Dragon, architect
Hello.
of Dragon Chain. We've got Greg from Rivet. And we've got Litecoin Lisa joining us as well. How's everybody doing?
Great.
Fantastic.
Doing great. As good as we can be.
A couple things to take care of from last week. Last week's episode was Blockchain and Whistleblowers, nominated by I Am for I Am, who's going to receive 100 lot for that. Each host from last week is going to receive 80 lot. Each topic contributor is going to receive 100 lot. And as a reminder, these ownership tokens come with perpetual passive income, free edits, and governance votes. And we have our August theme suggestions available for nominations. Go and put what you want us to talk about in August. Show us what you got. Do we have anything? Do we have anything up there right now?
Anything new, right?
Yeah, I don't know if anybody's suggested anything yet.
We'll get in there and be the first, or else it's just going to be me nominating us talking about Teletubby conspiracy theories.
By the way, I wanted to know if anybody thinks we should go to a weekly vote, because so that things aren't a month out. Like, say, a topic that maybe even like this Hinman emails don't
like today's
seem as
topic
topical as they were. So, maybe we should be doing it on the a few days before the show to give us the whole 7 days to come up with what the next week's show should be, and then a few days that people could get in and ask questions.
So it could be asked on, like, for example, Tuesday, and then by Thursday we would know what.
We would know by the next Tuesday at least, and then people would have 2 days to put questions in,
so
and it would be at least
more
topical. I don't know. And also
Friday maybe, right?
And I did talk to the producer, right? So one way or another, to see would this be something that would even make sense logistically? Do we have time to do this? The other thing we came up with is we did have a vote several months ago, might have been a year ago, that would allow an audible that essentially, if let's say some earth-shattering event happened this morning, we could all get on here and the hosts can vote to ignore this week's allotted topic, and we can focus on what is more topical, as well as we also opened up anybody can ask a question totally unrelated to the topic. As long as it gets ranked up high enough, it'll get covered. So do we need to worry about moving to a weekly?
Yeah. So really, what you say doesn't matter. Your suggestions don't matter. We're going to talk about
maybe like an emergency refocal vote. Like, if it's a really important topic, anyone who can make a proposal can propose. The subject this week gets overwritten with breaking news.
Yeah, that's basically the audible. Like, anybody can
That's
suggest that, and then if we think like, oh, that's a good point, let's do that, then we'll just do it. I think that more than that, and I see this as an issue overall with, I think, the DEN platform, is we need to articulate the existing stuff, the existing rules.
Oh yeah, there needs
Or
to
how
be a
things
place
how
where you can
things
go
already
see what
work,
the rules
because
are.
a lot of folks don't know that you can ask any question, even if it's not related specifically to the
Right.
topic, as long as it's a blockchain related question in any episode already. So that could be all that we need, is just
We need a precedent flagging system for the current state of the corpus. It's like if you've had any law training or you've ever played around in Westlaw, little yellow, green, and red flags next to the precedent. You got a green flag. This is current law. You've got a yellow flag. They're discussing changing it, and the red flags mean this isn't good law anymore.
I don't know what any of that means, but I'm glad you're here
Inside
for today's
baseball.
episode as a legal guy.
Lisa,
Yeah.
Lisa, what do you think? What do you think we should do?
I'm just kind of thinking that well, we used to do like a little more with current events, and that would be cover or an opportunity to
True.
hit something
True.
like that. Like, the SEC library case settled, that's current, live, active thing we should talk about. But this was voted on to talk about Hinman emails, and it is part of history. I don't know.
So maybe we're okay then, because we already have an hour of current events after the hour, right? So, and we have the audible, and anybody can ask any question outside of the topic. So I guess we're probably.
I think we just need
and we
John
always
to
have
make
John.
John needs to make a breaking news splash graphic that he can slap over whatever's going on.
You're telling me I don't already have one? I've got one. It's ready to go. So here's what I think, and I think this might be a good winner, a good compromise. If we quickly go through the questions and don't talk about and don't just reiterate and talk over and over about one topic, then we'll have time to hit more current events.
Very good point.
So therefore, we can do the good thing of answering the questions that are there and talking about the topic, but then also talk about other things. Great. Great brainstorm, guys. I love it all. We'll see what happens in the future. Go ahead and put in some GI governance issues if you want to change the way we do things, because this show is your show. Okay?
Yep.
Get out there and make it look the way you want it to look.
I'll give bonus lot to anybody who actually gets a good GI question and isn't on the regular team or on the regular list of hosts, right? So somebody, I'll
That's
give
what GI stands for, right? Good idea.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And I will make a video about the new governance issue. I'm sure with a song that's gonna get us a copyright issue or a copyright strike. So just go ahead and do it. No, I'm not doing. I'm now gonna be stealing my friend's band's music.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So,
so
get in there, vote for this. What we talk about in August. Let us know what you want our themes to be. Fantastic. Now let's go to the questions for today. Today we are talking about the Hinman emails. And our first question comes from Derox, right? Yes.
Oh, did it get reorganized?
I am for AM wins.
People go in there and vote, and then if I don't refresh right away, then it's different. So I had to go through refresh. So our first question is from an old fart. I am for AM. His question is, these emails displayed the vast and far-reaching amount of corruption at the SEC. Is Austin Campbell correct in that it is only a potential win in the court of public opinion? Here's his take, which I'm going to read. These emails don't seem to matter much. Corruption is deep and weaves through government at all levels. We will continue to be corrupt at the SEC and other agencies. It doesn't matter who is in the White House or who is elected to Congress. The deep state outlasts the elected. The solution, we must remember we outnumber them until we start ignoring them, stop feeding them, and turn our backs on them in mass. It will continue. This is why decentralization, supporting and building parallel systems is critical with or without deep state government approval. Agorism. I don't know what that word is. It's a great word. Great. So,
by the way, for anybody who doesn't know what agorism is, it's a way of thinking about anarchism or libertarianism. It's sort of if you want to think about it as a middle road between minarchism and ANCAPs, it's sort of like that.
Great. Dave, what do you think? Do you think we'll kick it off with you like always, because you're at the top of the panel?
Sure. Yeah. I think probably I reluctantly agree that it mostly matters in the court of public opinion, but even that is not a whole lot, because the people that the people that are going to pay attention to what's going on are already kind of paying attention. What I would like to see is for people to trust by default a little bit less, because I think the one of the big things here is the idea that what we're hearing from regulators who are demonstrably either stupid or corrupt, one or the other, is that, oh, we don't need anything other than the 1930s era laws to regulate this new technology, and what we say is true, and this is what it's going to be. And a lot of people just kind of accept that. Specifically, the idea that there's not a lot of ambiguity, there's not a lot of difficulty in applying old law to new tech. That's been a theme. Like, we don't need any new regulations, or we don't need any new ways of classifying assets, because the old stuff works just fine. Come in and register. Just come in and register. It's fine. Just come in and register. Stop evading us. What the emails show, part of what it shows, is that that's not true at all. There's a lot of internal debate and confusion and disagreement about how do you classify this brand new stuff with this ancient pre-computer era law. So that's my answer is, yeah, I kind of agree with it. I don't know if it'll even help public opinion, because a lot of people aren't paying attention. But if it does help, it would be in that it shows blatantly that regulators are lying to us when they say it's clear that the law is clear, because it's not, even to them.
Okay. Joe, so what do you think about these Hinman?
I guess I largely agree, especially about the corruption, and based upon what Dave just said and what Greg probably will say. The thing that surprises me most, that I think a lot of people are getting closer to it in terms of not just trusting the authorities anymore. Everybody knows how corrupt everything is, but I would bet that a lot of people are still very apathetic about it, because it doesn't affect them. You still have bread and circus, and it still works, and they can still go out and have fun and not give a shit. World burning, right? But anybody who's been in the middle of, or known anybody in the middle of something like what we've been in, comes to the weird realization, and it took me quite a while to quite accept it, that all the lawyers were telling me this, and yet they're still lawyers, and all of the people involved that were former regulators would tell me this stuff, even, and they still did not bow their head in shame as they walked to their house, which they should be, right? That in my opinion, that there is no such thing as the law. There's no such thing. I think everybody knows justice is not blind. If it ever was, it definitely isn't now, right? And you realize not only how corrupt it is, but how broken and how fundamentally badly designed our justice system is. That it literally, the law and your freaking constitutional rights don't mean shit if the right person wants to violate them. Sure, in an argument between Greg and I, we would probably be pretty well fair. But but if Greg were a multi-billionaire, if Greg were the son of a senator, I'd be fucked. My rights.
Or if I were the head of an agency.
Right. If you were head of an agency, or
this is where the problem comes in,
or the nephew of somebody at an agency, I would be fucked. Right. And essentially, it's bad. And that's, we can bring this to a blockchain thing beyond just being about blockchain, that the reason that they are so against this technology, because to me, it's not even, it has financial aspects that are very interesting, and some things that can be very interesting about that. When you look at gold or look at monetary stuff, but fundamentally, that's just one little piece. This is a technology that could effectively be provide tools to fix that system, among many others, right? Everybody knows about how Bitcoin can fix our issue with money and with banks and all that crap. And obviously, those are some of the most powerful people in the world that it's coming up against, and so they're against it. But then you look at the other things that government does with, with wars and with all the kickbacks and corruption that happen that are real. They're not, oh, it's not some fantasy thing. That shit's real. Those people are really corrupt. They really do steal money from us, the taxpayer, in so many different ways. And you think about it, if this is a tool that can help against that, obviously it's going to be fought against. It could help fix the voting system, which is fundamental to some of these issues. And guess they don't want that. They don't want that fixed. So you have to think about it. If these were smart contracts, you would know what the hell is going on. But guess what? They're not. We have no idea who's getting what, how they're getting it, and why they're making the decision they're making. But all we know is they do not want Dragon Chain. They do not want any ability to build these systems in the future. So whether it's an Orwellian thing, I don't know. The Hinman emails definitely showed a great deal of corruption. But guess what? There's no fucking way they actually released the emails that really showed corruption. And a lot of the things that happened behind the scenes with him talking to Vitalik and him talking to Lubin and him talking to whoever the hell else he was talking to, those were never written down, right? There's fucking verbal conversations where, hey, I'll do this. I'm getting the 15 million and my law firm wants me to do this while I'm still in this position. I'm going to do it. That shit's now not even written down, and yet it's pretty obvious what happened. And the fact that you can have a commissioner at the SEC on the payroll of a law firm getting $15 million, no less, while he's commissioner is so fucked up and absolutely against everything that this republic should stand for. That should be enough for pitchforks and everything else. But, bread and circus is freaking powerful as hell. So. But I still think it's coming. I told everybody on here I didn't want to bring it up a lot, but I would suggest that everyone review, maybe get familiarized with how to tie a hangman's noose, right? Because that's going to be the most positive development that could come out of any of this.
Oh my God, that's too funny.
Greg, so what do you think about all these?
So a couple things that I'd like to say. First, a little tiny white pill to throw in here. We wouldn't even be looking at these emails if the court system didn't work a little bit, right? One thing that we have to say is that when the courts are not tied by ugly precedent that makes it so there's an unfair advantage, or the parties are equal, it works pretty well. And in a lot of cases, it will expose corruption. Biggest problem with it in that respect, even when it's working properly, is it's slow, which is actually something blockchains can help with, because a lot of the reason it's slow is because the coordination of information and the submission of it in an officially verifiable way is challenging, right? So you don't just get to throw documents from your case file at the court and have them posted on their public website as an exhibit. You have to go through a process, and blockchains can facilitate that and make it faster and make it more transparent. The really big problem here, though, stems from the fact that there's a lot of corrupt precedent. There's a lot of broken precedent. I've written about it and probably talked about it a fair amount, but what I'm talking about here is Chevron deference. This allows agencies and their representatives to have a superpower in court when they get sued in federal court after they go through their whole process. The court gives them deference on their interpretation of vague laws, as in, like, Gary Gensler gets to decide what the ambiguity in the Securities Exchange Act means with respect to how it's applied to crypto. Like, that is not a good way to make sure that your agencies are accountable, right? Not at all. The other really interesting point to call out here is that agencies are particularly scared of blockchain because it can replace them. If you think about it as a disintermediating tech, a technology that makes it so you don't need middlemen to organize a process, why have official experts at all? Why not just have an official process and experts can join and chime in? We can have rules that are written by experts that aren't the experts hand selected by some bureaucratic process, right? Like, why don't we put the bureaucracy into the automation? And they are scared to death of that idea. That's why they want this to stay very financial sounding, because the day that somebody says, why don't we govern securities like we govern the World Blockchain Roundtable, right? Where everybody who has a stake gets a vote. Like, that is terrifying to people who make all of their money being the guy who stands there and says, I represent you when I've been appointed. And that's something that I think Gary Gensler, because of his knowledge of blockchain, is keenly aware of, and his constituencies that he's supporting when he's being corrupt like he is, are extremely afraid of, with good reason, because they don't have any other reason to exist. Their entire grift is based on it. We're going after his nest egg with this thing. We're going after his future nest eggs. Anybody who wants to follow in his footsteps will not be able to, because just like the lamplighters and the horse crop maker, the buggy crop makers, right? Society won't need them anymore. And I think that's what they're most terrified of people realizing. So that would be my comment.
Lisa, what are your thoughts on the Hinman emails?
I guess I go along with a lot of what everybody said. I have a little bit different push on it, because I think that this really exposes the, at the very least, lack of action or, but maybe unlawful actions of Congress by deferring their responsibility to a three-letter agency. And that's why there's so much ambiguity. And that's they don't want to be in front of their people or their peers and held accountable for making those laws, because they're already in everybody's pocket. So the way to avoid that and stay in office is to defer their responsibility we've charged them with, supposedly, to these three-letter agencies. And remember that we're talking about Gary Gensler, which, I think the most significant thing he did was pay for the Steele dossier for Hillary. But, and I think that's why he's paying the price, or he will be held out to pay the price as this is exposed. That's what I think on that, but I'm a conspiracy theory girl. But this is like the third generation back. Hinman. Then there was Jay Clayton. Jay Clayton is who went after the majority of these people. And you're leaning on what some guy said, that there was so much infighting, and he's being advised to not say this, from his own people. It's obviously, there's a guy that I followed on Twitter, and he shows like connections to the CCP, deep pockets that Buterin is supposedly connected with. And then in the Hinman emails, he says, well, I need to call Vitalik and make sure, that he knows how it goes or something like this, to make sure it's not a security, and make sure he knows, I can't remember the exact words, but so some of this is being exposed to us, and we're seeing the resident in chief and his son being connected to China. America has been sold out to China a long time ago, where it's just being exposed right now. I think right before FTX, of over $400 million was taken out by that Wang something that was Buterin's biggest funder. The day before that all went down, and SEC is supposed to be looking out for Main Street investors, for the little guy. They're not. They're just a funneling resource, to stop innovation in America, and to push all of this out to China and keep filling their pockets, in my opinion. So yeah, I agree with we need to opt out and choose something else.
Yeah, that makes sense. Anybody else have anything they want to add on this before we go to the next question? I feel like we all got to say like our piece on the topic. It was nice. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, I am for the great question that we got to talk about. Yeah, and we'll see what happened in the court of public opinion too. That's what I am for am there talked about. It's like that's where they get to win. So hopefully, like it matters in the court of public opinion too, right? Let's go on to the next question. This one comes from Darox. Here we go. Ethereum Gate. Can we add the question here? Here we go. How do I do it? There it is. Yeah, this one comes in from Garox. Ethereum Gate. What are the consequences for the ecosystem if it turns out that Ethereum has a secured market exclusivity? Joe, you want to kick this one off for us?
Sure. I was wondering if it was, what are the consequences for the ecosystem versus for Ethereum in that ecosystem? Like, say, if Ethereum Gate is demonstrated to be fully true, and by the way, God bless XRP Army for pulling stuff out that CNBC would never freaking cover, let alone do any research into. So much has been uncovered, I can't even keep track of all of it. That mostly points to the pretty radical, extreme corruption at the SEC, whether it's meeting with Sam Bankman-Fried, and not just they met with him. Yeah, we had a sandwich. It was that they met with him in order to plan what they were going to do with crypto. And as he's stealing all this and funneling money back to their buddies, so on, you have to think that these are the very same people who then also were essentially handing privilege to, at the same time they're saying sufficiently decentralized, they're talking to the very guys, I talked to Vitalik, and apparently this is what it's about. And I'm like, give me a freaking break, first of all. And the thing that really blew my mind was the stuff with the Chinese investment that I'd never even heard that before, that only came out because of the Prometheum stuff, and they matched up their investors with Ethereum's investors and the original issuers of the ICO tokens for Ethereum and all that crap. And it's all CCP, Chinese Communist Party controlled. It's craziness. And now I understand, again, I mentioned this maybe a week or two ago, that thread that I had with Vitalik on Twitter, that as an engineer, and that's, by the way, how I'm an engineer, the way that I look at a lot of these things is super interesting. That if you want to know the truth about a system, if there are engineers involved, you can ask them engineering questions and you can come to the truth, because it's very rare. And it does happen, but it's very rare when they're talking about a system that an engineer will lie, because it's engineering. It's this is how it is how it works. Yes, this is shit. This is.
Hey guys.
Yeah.
I just got a text from Rivet's legal counsel just alerting me of some breaking freaking news. Ripple order just dropped. It's not a security.
Oh, wow.
Really?
See?
Yeah.
We just had this discussion, didn't we? Let's look on Twitter real quick. Anyway.
What do you mean order dropped?
It came out, like they published it.
Okay, let's look that up on the side.
To be not a security.
Let's look that up on the side. I want to hear the rest of what Joe was.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, essentially this stuff happened, that tons of things going on behind the scenes that blew my mind, that I could never understand why, with the Zoom comments. That and this is kind of, who cares really, but Zoom had this point where they were spying on people. It came out that they were spying on people, and everybody's like, what the hell? And we found out it's just Chinese Communist Party owned. And the reason that we knew they spied on people is because they actually broke into a meeting with dissidents in Hong Kong, people who were essentially protesting with the goings on there. And Chinese Communist Party members didn't just listen in like the NSA or CIA does. They actually broke into the meeting and said, "You guys can't be talking about these things." And this made news, but no one really spread it, because for some reason there was enough VC money in Zoom or something over here that they didn't want that to spread. And so Zoom came out and said, "We're not doing that anymore. It's all encrypted, blah, blah, blah." And Vitalik was like, "Yay, Zoom! They're doing end-to-end encryption, and this is the way things should be." And I'm like, "Well, wait a minute. Is it open source? Of all groups in the world, should be trusting that these guys are telling you the truth, that they're not listening in now?" And Vitalik's like, "Oh, you don't want to. You can't be a perfectionist because then you'll never get any improvements." I'm like, "You're a fucking engineer, man. It's very easy for them to prove what they're doing to whether or not they're listening in." And if their marketing department says, "No, we're not doing that anymore," really, we're not. Of all people, Vitalik shouldn't be the one in this crypto world, shouldn't be the one saying, "Oh, you should just let him go. This is a great thing, Joe." And it kind of blew my mind. It didn't make any sense until this new info came out that they're largely funded by the Communist Chinese Party. Vitalik gets to buy all of the kitten merchandise that he wants because he has enough money, because they put so much in at the beginning and had all those secret whales and stuff that Lubin talks about. So there has to be at least a decent amount that is correct about what is called Ethereum Gate. And it's just one of many. It's not probably as bad as FTX Gate, but the fact that our regulatory body, who's trying to fit everything into that freaking peg hole, it is saying that the things that I produce as an engineer are as if I was a Goldman Sachs. I've never made the money that a Goldman Sachs guy makes, right? I don't do that type of shit. I build stuff, right? And they're trying to say that what I'm building is that thing that they do because we can fit it in here and it's convenient to us, and really it's convenient to our masters is essentially what it is. So I don't know. I would think something like that should be shameful to Ethereum and all the founders that were involved. And I hope not all of them are involved, right? I would have never thought that Vitalik was involved, but now I don't know. And what's worse is essentially this is the MO. And if you look at it, the way that Bitcoin, and I'm probably getting to some things here that I shouldn't say, but Bitcoin was crippled. Bitcoin cannot scale as it was intended to scale and as it originally could have scaled because groups came in, and whether or not they were paid by outsiders or not, they effectively crippled it so that it is only a store of value, and it is hopefully going to be able to scale into the distant future. I would say they've similarly done much the same with Ethereum. That Ethereum can't scale to the level that it should be able to scale theoretically. And I think it's largely for the same reasons. But anyway, that's a long answer. Sorry it took so long there.
No, it was insightful. Thank you.
So I just did a little quick read of the ruling. It was granted in part. The summary judgment motion by the SEC was granted and denied in part. Right. So what we've actually got here is everything but the institutional sales that they engaged in, where they directly negotiated with institutional buyers.
Okay.
Those were securities transactions, but where it was done programmatically.
Wait, everything
securities.
Except those were securities?
Everything except all the institutional sales, securities.
Okay.
Everything else, not, because of the programmatic nature. That was
so
the
the
part about the
secondary
ruling.
markets, the
Secondary markets, their primary market offer based on blind bid. Anytime they had an automated system selling to strangers, not a security.
Okay.
So Greg, as an attorney, and sorry, I don't want to. Hopefully, it's
This is
okay
huge,
if I ask you
actually.
this.
This is a big
former
fucking win
attorney.
for crypto.
I mean, we never had any VCs or any institutional sales at all. Everything we've ever done has either been, an individual could come in and buy this, or if it was open market, then people can sell it. Obviously, we never had a VC. We never had. Any other.
I think you guys should probably move to have your case immediately dropped.
Yeah.
But did they avoid? Did the judge give clarity on tokens in secondary markets? Because in the library case, they avoided it. Even though
this went further. This went
Dow
beyond
wrote an
that.
amicus, so they
Sort
did
of like
address.
they swept in everything. They said anything that was done. They went with a different rationale, basically.
It would have been. Yeah, that would be.
Yeah,
I would imagine
secondary markets definitely are not securities under this rule.
Wow. And the funny thing is, there was a theory that she was waiting for that library ruling before she made this one. There were several people that were saying that. You know, man, I know more about lawyers than I would have ever signed up for in the voluntary world. I will tell you that.
This is a good fucking day for
Since-
crypto, actually.
I have a question, Greg. Since this is a summary judgment, it would be able to set a precedence, right? Because a lot of these other decisions have been like settled. SEC has settled with people, and so when it settles, it does not set a precedent.
It finally
a summary judgment would. Is that right?
Yeah, this finally disposed of major issues in a way that is binding on lower courts and future judges at the same level.
Again, God bless XRP. God bless Ripple, man.
And also, thank you for highlighting helping highlight my earlier point about how the system's not entirely corrupt. It just takes too long.
That is.
You engineered this whole thing, Greg, just to make a point, didn't you? That's interesting. So how do you define, Greg? I don't like you're our, at this point, you're my like lawyer friend that I know, or previous lawyer friend that I know. Yep. How do you define institutional investor? What does that mean?
So
what does it mean?
And I was trying to get a sense of that, and I need to read it in detail to be fully clear. But my best sort of off the cuff explanation of what they mean by that is anytime the guys who are the CEO / founders of Ripple, those two dudes, whatever their names were, can't think of the names off the top of my head.
The guys, it's fine.
Those guys. Well, I want to use their proper names because they've done the whole community a service. And I think they deserve our plaudits. Let's see if I can find it.
You mean from the Ripple case?
Yeah, the Ripple case. It's
John Deaton. There's digital asset.
John Deaton played amazing.
Well, we're talking about the people who would have engaged in sales to
folks who are in charge of the XRP company.
We're trying to define what they might mean by institutional investor. Like, how do you define that?
They did several. I'm no expert, but I do believe that
talking about Brad Garlinghouse and Christian Larson.
Yeah.
When those guys went to like institutional investors, when they went to go to a meeting with the guys at BlackRock, or when they went to a meeting with Grayscale, and said, "Would you like to buy a tranche of this in a sale that will help us build it?"
And so that
were personally negotiated between the parties,
and those were securities. Well,
So if that is what that is, unless they have some bastardized definition of it, would that not imply that the ICOs were not institutional sales, like opening up an exchange offer, hey, here they are for sale, anybody can show up and buy them,
days of 2017, kind of honestly, if you wanted to get fancy with the spices.
If anything, the funniest thing about if this as we understand it is that you could actually make the case that Gensler has been making, that no additional laws are necessary, but the difference is his result of that would be that the SEC now controls it. But the real result of that is this is freaking software. If there's not a regulatory body to govern,
this is a computer programming thing.
Baseball trading cards and Pokemon cards, then there should not be for this world.
Right. It's like trying to define cryptography protocols as munitions. It doesn't work.
Yes, it doesn't. Yes.
It is a twist of rhetoric that they've gotten away with until the court decided to cut it down. My favorite part of this ruling, though, so far, I've got to read this to you guys.
Okay.
The SEC tried to import the argument that I suggested they might with respect to the family similarity test, or the familial similarity test that came out in that 1990 case that basically said if this is a new type of thing that is unamenable to Howey, we can wipe out the relevant elements of Howey if it still looks like an investment contract. It's like the official version of the duck test.
Yeah.
When they tried to import that, the court responded by going, "We need not reach that point." And they reiterated the programmatic piece. They short-circuited the problem that if they tried to set precedent, they would only be setting it with respect to one token, by fundamentally changing the frame in how they finished this argument.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
that's great. That's great.
Man,
A lot of
this is
people think
really
that,
big.
like, say, library might have lost because they only went after one prong of the Howey. And again, I'm no expert, right? But I know when we looked
Different
at
judges,
it,
man.
and we wrote our initial response to SEC. How do I say this? I think almost every prong of the test is beaten with what we did, right? And when we brought it to the attorneys, I want to go into all the details there because we're not supposed to talk about some of that stuff. But
that was a very thorough response, and it was educational to anybody who, even separate from Dragon Chain, who wants to understand why this is important, how it works, and what it's being used for outside the scope of money and investing and securities and all of that.
And it's,
sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's hilarious because it's, we wrote that with no attorneys, right? We ended up needing to run it by the attorneys because we were in between attorneys at the time. The SEC had told us, okay, we're not going to do anything. You just don't do this stuff anymore. And we're like, okay, sure. And then right before a statute of limitations, of course, they come in and sue us and try to ruin further business. They ruined several projects that were in process. So they do that shit on purpose. It's evil. Objectively, I would say it's evil.
Well, and now
right?
it's sort of vanquished evil, right? Like there's
That's
still appeals probably. I'm guessing that the SEC is going to try to get the Supreme Court's ear on this, but I'm not sure if they want it.
That's bad timing on their case.
Not sure if they freaking want it, man.
Supreme Court's going to blow them out. So
I mean, the Supreme Court might decide to take judicial notice of the Chevron issue here.
I kind of, Joe, you surprised me a little bit, but I like what you said about this could mean that you interpret like what I was bitching about at the beginning of this episode about, applying the laws are as clear as day. You can just apply existing law. You could interpret this as saying that they were right. And I wonder if that's part of what they want too. It's like, no, yeah, you can, and they're not securities.
It's the weirdest thing because I think most attorneys, like when you talk to them and you'll talk about X or Y, and they'll say, oh, well, X. And like, but wait a minute. The Constitution says this. I will tell you, most attorneys that I've met that I know don't go to the Constitution first. They go to, oh, well, here's precedent, here's what this means, here's what all of us lawyers agree with, right? Assuming that the Constitution is a fucking piece of shit paper that is meaningless. They don't ever go to that. And when you bring that up, it's like, oh, well, wait a minute, you'd have to go to the Supreme Court for that. That's a way, you don't have the budget for that. And it's really fucking sad. And, stuff like this is helpful because it kind of reinstitutionalizes, well, wait a minute, that shit actually exists and it's there for a reason, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. It's good.
I think we assume that everything has already passed the Constitution smell test, but oh yeah, it got here because it obviously is okay with these things. And then
and here's the real tragedy, right? There's a tragedy embedded in this win, right? To me, that you guys just nailed it, right? Like the Constitution was trampled over until just now. How many great projects died? How many great projects got shut down? How many never started because people were afraid of this bullshit?
Veritasium,
it ended up being unconstitutional.
The truth
got away with
protocol.
Unconstitutional action until today.
With that open source money, when we did that at the beginning, we had a series of projects that were either local or people we knew, right? That were legitimate, real use cases, not bullshit, not money grabs, not meme coins, that really wanted to do something. One of them was like a better way to handle charities, where you could actually see where your money went, right? Where you would know that it was actually being used for the purpose, right? All of these groups shut down. And then we had, before the SEC came in, we had something like 400 or 500 applicants at various ranges. Some of them were just conceptual, but some of them were systems that already had working prototypes that they wanted to plug in token systems, wanted to put the history on blockchain, various other applications, all dead, right? So there are, and that this is just Dragon Chain. So think about all these other groups, except for the ones that the VCs backed somehow. All the rest of thousands of projects went nowhere. So I would say trillions of dollars. Now, who knows what, but essentially what you saw in 2017 that everybody thought was like, oh, there was as a craziness. And like, I think that's reality. That's what happens when you have a free market, right? And people made money. And, you know, guess what? Poor Midwesterners made money, and they can't have that shit, right? If you aren't their nephew, you should not be able to make money. If you don't already have 25 million and the right kind of blue blood, then, you know, screw you. You can't make money. Who you think you are? Anyway, that's good news. I'll read the whole thing. I promise I will read the whole. I tend to get so depressed reading some of these legal things that I don't always I don't always read them.
Well, I've got I'm about to upload it to IPFS. I'm going to share it under the show in Den. So
Far out.
Nice. Thanks.
I will. I'll tip you out heavily with some matter for that. You can put it whatever layer you think is best.
you got it.
So we've
I'm
got
in-
one more question left if we want to try to get to it.
Damn
Dave,
good
what do you
mood
think?
all of a
Should we
sudden,
do your
Jesus.
question?
I had a talking point in there. I don't know if it I guess it's pretty relevant, but basically the bold portion, I put it in there in case we wanted to spend time talking about it or not. But basically I'm arguing that maybe it's moot, right? Because if what Greg brought up has just happened, then it sort of agrees with the point that I make, which is that if utility tokens or licensing tokens or consensus collateral tokens that require you to do something, to use them to run a node or to validate, reach consensus on the blockchain, or license software to build a product, to make any money, if those are securities, then so are wrenches and so are screwdrivers, kind of thing, right?
Yep.
Because wrenches and screwdrivers can also go up and down in value based on supply and demand. And maybe that makes them a good investment avenue for somebody who wants to do that. But that doesn't mean that it's a security. That's not equal to each other. So we can talk about that if you want, but I think that hopefully is what the judge just said too.
Yeah. I mean, there's just what just happened right now is nuts. I'm sorry. It's just a new world. I'm having a hard time processing it. The implications of this decision, they went away. I did not expect them to go. Let's put it this way. The court did something that I was optimistic about happening in the late 2010s that I had abandoned hope of at this point. I mean, they literally ran with the argument that crypto could be programmed in a way to avoid the implications of the law. And they just basically said, yep, it is. So, I mean, at least that's the
So it
initial
does.
first blush of like giddy, heady reading of this. I'm sure there are probably pitfalls. I'm sure the fight's not over, but this is a big win.
Amazing.
Yeah, this is a damn big win.
Same thing that I am just said in chat too. It's a good win. It's a good battle to win.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, this is. We need to take this as momentum. We need to take this as momentum because they are going to take this as a major back foot setback, right? They're going to be lashing out rapidly. They're going to probably do some things that are additionally unconstitutional on top of this. Maybe Elizabeth Warren fired the first shot. We fired back right here and right now. We landed a major blow, but but now they're going to start taking the fight seriously. If you've ever played like a Final Fantasy game, and like after you beat the early version of the boss, it transforms into
the bigger, badder boss.
They're going to take the gloves off.
Yeah. Never underestimate a cornered animal, especially with unlimited money production capacity, right? So
because we all know that there's a lot of animals out there that get cornered that are also printing.
And IM just raised a really great point. Off ramps and on ramps are still at serious risk, and they're beholden to an entirely different regulatory regime potentially. Like if they come after them with payments law for payment systems, then we may see a whole other fight on our hands. And just first blush guessing, that's maybe where they're going to go next if they're really going to try to scorched earth stop this. But what they just did right now kind of resets the clock to 2018 and says, actually, you can't do any of this bullshit, Gary.
Yeah. Wow.
Oh shit! Yeah, the markets are reacting.
I don't know how many ICOs are going to launch tomorrow, man.
I don't ever look. I haven't looked at CoinGecko, which is my go-to for markets, in months, maybe a year. I don't like. I've not given a shit for so long, but I just got curious and I was like, well, let's see here, and holy hell.
Yeah, I
Wow.
like zoned out for a second so I could go buy some Bitcoin. Not gonna lie,
Dude, I'm
I-
seriously thinking about like getting paid early this month because that's one of the things you can do if you're a business owner. Like you can tell
That's-
yourself when you get paid. I
To
think
me-
I'm seriously about to go dump it all in. Not
To me, it's
investment,
funny because Ripple's up like 27% now. I'm just like, oh, that's
Less than I would expect, actually, but still.
Well, I think
News
it's
is
just getting out.
man.
Yeah.
Greg, you heard it here first. Greg had
Yeah.
his finger on the pulse from his legal team. I think it's still.
Yeah,
getting
I don't
out,
think there's anything
so.
on Google News yet.
Well, that's interesting because that should not the markets, but this in general should hopefully alleviate some concern by builders, people who want to build in the U.S., people who want to set up shop here and build products based on this technology to American consumers. I would hope that they would now see, oh, okay, we are allowed to build with this. As long as I just go buy the licenses on the open market to use them, I can just go do that.
Right. I mean, literally, they can use the same distribution
Yeah.
platform that Ripple used, and they're using something that court said wasn't a system that allows you to sell securities.
Yeah, and so because that's how I see a lot of these crypto markets. These
By the way, good
exchanges
sector,
and
they might be
stuff.
investing in the company that helped them do that because they're going to be really rich after this.
A lot of it with any network that has an actual use case, something you can actually use it for to build software on. These exchanges are just a really like you're offloading license management by a decentralized company, basically, if you want to look at it that way, to the exchanges, because people can just go out and buy it, whether it's peer-to-peer or a DEX or a SEX or a whatever. And oh man, I just hope that this brings more builders.
Yeah,
Or at least like stops the
won't.
bleed, stops
I
the
cannot
brain
see how it
drain.
won't.
you
Like,
know?
you guys remember 2017, right? People were having glorious ideas.
Mhm.
It was like
Oh,
a
sure, yeah.
supercharged institutional level magic version of
Yeah.
Kickstarter, where people were like, let's change the fucking world in a software project. And they put these huge projects up and people were like, yeah, and ass loads of money flowed into it.
Here's the thing
They
to watch.
shut it
though.
down under the
Here's the
notion
thing to
that
watch.
your programmatic workaround doesn't work. And the court just said, actually, yeah, it does.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing though to watch, because there were tons of projects. Like there are some amazing privacy ones, some amazing. There were really amazing projects that were engineering focused, and then there were a lot of projects that were Goldman Sachs money grabs, and you can always tell by like what's the history of this team. It's like, oh, they're a bunch of investment bankers. It's like, well, wait a minute. What does it? Would I ever trust an investment banker with a privacy system? Probably not. So that's the thing that people need to watch out for. Anyway. Cool.
And with that, we've got 7 minutes left in this show. So I think that's enough time for a little bit of an outro. And then also, if you don't know the deal, we talk current events after this. And it sounds like there's some big current events happening that we'll be talking about. I was really excited to talk about AI stuff at current events, but I feel like that's not even going to happen today. So yeah, let's get out of here, get to current events. Dave, anything you would like to plug and let people know about?
Yeah, we were out last week for the Dindal call. We'll have it back up today. We'll cover a little bit of what was. There were some questions last week that didn't get answered. I answered them in the Dindal layer on Den then, but we'll hit on them today. There's some more good questions today for today's call, 3 p.m. Eastern. And I imagine, I don't know if we'll get to it today, but there's a lot to talk about because one of the recurring themes for those governance calls has been, at what point do we need to offshore all of our operations? You know what I mean? And so I imagine there will at least touch on that as, okay, maybe we'll wait and see what's going on here with the Ripple case, what the implications of that are. And maybe we don't have to, because I know that we didn't do any sort of, based on what Greg said, we should be fine based on that, but we'll see. 3 p.m. Eastern, DenDAO call happens on Den in the DenDAO layer. You can join the call if you want. There's a link.
Great. Joe, anything you'd like to plug and let people know about?
My mustache. I think people should be commenting positively, and I'm surprised none of you have. DenDAO call. Yeah, that'll be super interesting today. We did move Super Happy Dragon Lucky to Thursdays, one of the probably many schedule changes that are going on. So start watching it on Thursdays, and let us know if you have any ideas to change it up. But yeah, DenDAO call should be important, and who knows? I mean, man, contribute to the Dragon Chain Legal Fund. We still owe some lawyers some money, and some of the lawyers we've worked with are good people.
Help Dragon Chain pay for a slam dunk, man.
Yeah, we can come in and freaking end this whole thing with our case, right? So yeah, so help us out.
Help us fund the dunk.
And either way, if this clears up, it'll help us even with the revenue, because that's been the main reason that they came after us, was to destroy our ability to keep alive, right? Which we've done, and we will do until my last breath is like my last nickel. We're going to be making this thing work. So anyway, that's it. Thanks a bunch.
Love it. All right, Greg, what do you want to plug? What do you want to let people know about?
Shit. I just want to just go touch grass. Everybody go outside and fucking smile. Today's a good goddamn day. Today's a really good goddamn day. But tomorrow, once you've gotten over the hangover, if you go drinking to celebrate, or not if you don't, or if you're like wearing off the acid trip, whatever your drug of choice is, right? Go over to Rivet, sign up for an endpoint, and start building something, because it looks to me like the future just opened back up, and we have a chance to do all of the things that we really wanted to do when we started building all these things. The world is now open for a change movement that washes over any future challenges, and now is the time to push harder. And we need to push harder, not by fighting in the sense that we're trying to destroy some old systems. We need to start fighting in the sense that we build new ones. So get out there and build something. Like, now is the time. If you have an idea, pull the damn trigger. We want more and more good ideas. And if you've got one, never been a better time to pull the trigger.
I love it. That's why I show up.
There it is. Lisa, anything you'd like to plug and let the people know about?
Well, I think everybody's just on this digital civil war high right now, so I'm excited and want to keep everybody's spirits up with that. I'm with Greg. Go build something, do something, spread the word about crypto, educate somebody. Accept crypto at your business. Whatever you've got to do. This is our freedom of speech movement. This is a constitutional moment, and this is a win for America. So it's another Independence Day, I think.
There you go. Get out there and celebrate.
Yeah. We can shoot fireworks tonight.
Yeah, let's go for it. I don't even let my kids shoot fireworks, and I would shoot fireworks for this.
Right on.
There you go.
Not directly at Gary, but if he got in the way, that's okay too.
Effigy. That's why effigies exist. So we can legally show what we will do if ever the person is near.
There it is. Freedom of speech. That's what it is right there.
People won't know what we're doing if we effigy Gary Gensler, though, because they'll think we're trying to effigy Mr. Potato Head.
Smeagol.
Great. So get in there next week and leave us some comments. Next week we are going to be talking about cryptocurrency wallets, and probably talking about this next week as well. So get in there, ask us questions, let us know what you want us to talk about. Leave us some questions. Yeah, we're talking about cryptocurrency wallets. I think we're out of updates. That's everything. Don't forget to share this episode. The more you share, the more our hosts get, you get, and the community grows. We're excited to expand. Let's get going. Yeah, stick around for current events, talking about current events after this. And you know, that's why I can't stand Dave, and that's the one thing. I was waiting, I was holding that one in. Yeah, all right, we'll have a good one. See you next.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are as a people inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and secret proceedings. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed.
Fun show. I
love that wrench that got thrown in our show today. That was the most appropriate topic for it to be thrown into as well.
Yeah.
It's really pretty cool, huh?
We literally talked too earlier about like breaking news.
Yeah.
Thanks for Greg for bringing that up. I wouldn't have.
I wouldn't. I didn't.
It's awesome.
I wouldn't have seen it during the show. I would have seen it after.
Shout out to Jeff if you're watching, man. Like, thanks for sending me that link.
So 2017, there was a solar eclipse. Next year, there's a solar eclipse in April. That may hopefully that bookends this whole the dark times. that would be excellent, you know, the framing of that.
Yeah, we have it on our on, I don't know if you'll be able to see this. It's on the shield of the dragon family crest. Blurring it out. The eclipse is there because it happened when we first opened up. The market was all crazy, and it was like, oh, we weren't sure if we were going to have enough money to conduct everything else and say, okay, let's roll this out. And the eclipse happened, and then like with literally within hours, it filled up. And like, oh, okay, so now we can proceed, right? And so it was a meaningful date that was always remembered. And we were. Unfortunately, I was stupid. I didn't just drive a couple of hours south to Oregon to see the total. We saw partial in Bellevue in Seattle. It was cool. Kids were out there. We were looking at finding different ways to view it and stuff. But
I went up to Georgia for that. It was really dope. I recommend it. It's way more impressive than even I thought it was going to be, because part of me in the back of my mind was like, okay, well, most of this is about, an excuse to get together with family, see something that's rare. It goes dark, but I see that every night. Who cares? But really, it was like everything felt different. The animals and the crickets and the insects were all just like, everybody shut up. And it just like, it felt weird, and I loved it. So I do want to go back and see.
I was living in Indy at the time. Like, so it just went through my city. I got to go outside of my work and see it happen. It was really cool.
I was at work during it, and I don't know if I went outside to look at it. And I think at one point I went outside and I was like, oh, it just looks like a normal day to me. I don't know what happened. It was creepy. Everybody's like, oh, it's happening. I'm like, I have no idea. Everything looks completely normal.
When people talk about the cult, right, they talk about sort of this idea of secret knowledge.
Yeah, I had no idea that Dragon Chain was woo-woo.
Got to screw with the populace with knowing what they're coming.
Was woo-woo.
Woo-woo. That you guys believe in woo.
What's happening? I don't even know.
I recognize patterns.
Alternative things. But they say there's a saying that like millionaires trust tarot readers or something, and billionaires trust astrologers. They've been looking at the stars for years.
Think about this
weird stuff.
They correlate to when I've actually have a scientific case for astrology. Think about this. you are born at a certain time of year, right? That gives you a star sign in a particular band of time, right? And you share traits with all of the people that make it so that these predictions seem more accurate than not. And while you could argue that it's just like people find commonalities in what is predicted about them, and so it seems true. What about this? What if, say you're born in January? When do you come to consciousness? Do most people come to consciousness in the spring, in the summer? How does that influence your personality, right? Like seasons and astrology are linked intrinsically, and human development and seasons as they're experienced are linked, right? Like to me, it just it's just a proxy for looking at the way that people develop given the time of year they're born and their geography.
Similar with naming, like a person's name or a project's name has a huge effect on how it's perceived and used, and so it's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Have you looked into gematria, Joe?
Which one is that? Is that the numbers? Oh,
I completely dismiss all of that personally, but I find it fascinating.
The only thing I could see, and I'll take Greg's angle on this, that the thing that I could see that could be real about it is people who are using it to name other things, or that if I want my project to be related to this concept, then I can look up that and then find a naming that fits into that same number over here. You could potentially do that. The rest of it is like
I don't know. The sports stuff is pretty wild when you look at
really
their name and dates,
and then
like how many yards they ran, or I don't know.
But that just could be the whole the numerology stuff. The risk is always that they're just it's like, oh, I'm gonna keep trying these different variations until something fits, and I say it, people want to believe it. So okay.
There's definitely a line that, to me personally, there's a line that I come up against where I'm like, at a certain point, it's just like, okay, you can make things look a certain way if you try enough different angles at it. For example, I saw somebody arguing that because Corona has 6 letters in it, and because you can add up the numerical value of each letter and it equals 66, that's 666. So do you really want that vaccine? But then I was thinking, well, wouldn't that mean that coronavirus is the devil and the vaccine is from God fighting the devil? So you can interpret it a bunch of different ways, and a lot of people, to me, put it in the way that they want it to be interpreted for their particular argument, and that's where I think it gets dangerous.
That's what I love about, to me, that's like religion, that's faith, that kind of stuff is like religion. And what I love about religion is it gives you just a reason to try shit and to believe in shit, even though everything makes no sense whatsoever, right? Dude, if we stop and think about just the fact that we exist, it's ludicrous.
Yeah.
But
did you guys?
If you sit there and that's all
or is it the only thing that could happen?
Well, if you sit there and think about that, and you don't ever go to the next thing,
all other cases are equally plausible.
Well, what I'm trying to say is that, if you sit there and just think about that one thing over and over, and don't go, "Oh, we exist because there's a guy in heaven that made us." Let's keep if you just sit there and dwell on that, then you never get to do anything else. So it's kind of like a nice reason to just keep going, like a businessman believing in tarot. It's just I've got a little bit of something to back it up. Let me keep going.
I can vouch for tarot as a useful at least psychological exercise. And I myself can give readings. I have a deck. I can give readings. I've done it a lot. I've been a fan of it for since before college, but I don't attribute anything beyond my understanding, beyond the fact that I attribute most things to things beyond my understanding.
Well, I will say that I've had better luck with tarot reads than I have with psychology, with shrinks, to be honest.
It's specific mystical knowledge, I guess.
Just like making you think about yourself and exploring internally and that kind of thing. I've had better experiences.
You got to get a better shrink, man.
I've had several.
Who are you seeing?
Usually whoever the VA sends at me, but even the private ones I've seen have been kind of.
By the way, the Office Space, that was one of the, in my opinion, one of the best foundations for a comedy ever. That whole scene where he's essentially, he's and then the guy dies. It's pretty. So when I saw it, I was like, this is gonna be good. It's hilarious. Yeah. Anyway, I was saying that I recently watched something and I'm like, what? And it was declassified info, 3-letter agency, talking about something, and I still don't totally understand it. I've watched a few things. I still want to know more, but essentially where a physicist was involved with this 3-letter agency related to the reality of manifestation, right? And he essentially was saying that the universe is some type of a fractal. I'm going to totally get all this wrong, but essentially that your mind was somehow related in some fractal way to the universe in a way that it can map reality outward. And I don't totally understand it, but it was real research. It wasn't just like some crazy person on a YouTube channel. It was something that they actually really looked into and found some evidence that some of it's real. So anyway,
there's some interesting stuff there, and we'll probably never know what actually, like those programs like Stargate and stuff like that. I've seen some really interesting conversations with physicists, with people who were involved, where it's like, oh, okay, that's quite interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So
anyway,
thanks, solar eclipse coming around to end all this for us, I guess is the point of all that.
Yeah, that was one of the reasons given the start, I'm like, okay, we know our case is coming up. We know all that stuff's coming next year. There has to be some universe, weighing in on it somehow. But anyway, so I've been watching, and I even went to go see. There's one that's an annular one this year in the fall or something, right? So I kind of even want to go see that, but I don't know if we'll be able to do that or not.
Is anybody else excited that Coca-Cola is in our chat?
Always.
Coke itself.
Yes.
The company.
This is the company Coca-Cola, obviously.
New or old is the only question I have. And is it only because of the price of sugar versus corn syrup?
It's funny enough, today is the day that I'm drinking a Coca-Cola. I never drink Coke. I
had one just last week for the first time in forever. I was at the vet, and I was like, yeah, sure, give me a free Coke.
I had one yesterday.
I always thought that was someone just riffing on the brand account. Is that legit brand account? That'd be fun.
It's
100%. That's Coca-Cola official. And whatever you're thinking that
They're
means
a new
is true.
Sponsor. Yes, please give to the Dragon Chains fund and legal fund.
Yeah, they're here to find out how to donate to the legal fund. Speaking of the legal fund, I've got Greg posted in the World Blockchain Roundtable episode, today's episode. In the replies there, you can find a link to the document that outlines what exactly was decided, what got handed down today. And based on what Greg was saying with the institutional investments versus the rest of it, it looks like they're saying that I lost it here now. So there is.
Were you trying to show us?
Scroll down. Well, I was going to read it to you, but yeah, show it.
Is it the first page or the last page, Greg?
It's kind of in the middle. It's weird.
Yeah, I know. That's what I lost where it was.
So all legal documents are laid out in like this basic form of, it's called CRAC analysis. So they're going to give you a conclusion at the front, tell you that there was a ruling and that it came out in a certain way.
Well, then you got to.
They're going to say, here's the the rules and the facts that are relevant, and then here's our analysis. And the analysis is actually about two-thirds of the way through. And that's
that one paragraph on the last page, though. For the foregoing reasons, the SEC's motion for summary judgment is granted for institutional sales and otherwise denied. Defendant's motion for summary judgment is granted to the programmatic sales, other distributions, and Larson's and Garlingson's sales are denied.
So it looks like this is the part here. It says SEC alleges Ripple sold approximately 7 to 8 million of XRP in these institutional sales. So it sounds like they're still on the hook for these specifically. Is that right? Is how I read it.
But I mean,
but then there's all these other ones where there's this paragraph that's a different category. There's this paragraph that's a different category. There's all this other stuff that really, really matters that doesn't count.
So stuff they did the traditional way without registering first, on the hook. Stuff they didn't register first for, but used the new crypto way, not on the hook.
Right. So this specifically, and this is it. Which I actually find that to be reasonably reasonable.
Crazy. I just what I've seen from this judge has seemed across the board more reasonable than I would have ever been led to expect, because even in the cases where the SEC was obviously trying to have it both ways, they win an argument over here, and then they come back and argue the exact opposite. The judge was calling them out on it, right? Which that surprised me, right? So pretty amazing stuff.
I have a case going on right now, and it got really delayed because there was some kind of retraining of judges here around the first of the year, and we got like all new judges, or they moved everybody around. We lost our judge, got a new judge. She's amazing. And then we had 2 days of trial, went back for the third day. Got pushed because somebody else was there. We have to go back for a third day. And she had to delay it because she said there is a national training and conference for judges the second or third week, or maybe both, of July. And it's interesting that the timing of this is happening. That girl that said you're not human, and they're trying to charge her for hate speech, and they can't find her now. Hate speech is not a thing in the Constitution. That's my understanding. I think this is more of the constitutional education of America. We're finding our freedom of speech through sound money, through cryptocurrency, outside the centralized system, because that's the point that I understand, is that it's when it's decentralized, then it's not a security. So when it's in the people's hand, of we the people, then that's our freedom of speech. Am I way off?
No, I don't think you're way off. I think that's kind of how that is a way to interpret the part in the emails.
Well, I don't think that anybody anticipated
sufficiently decentralized.
I don't think anybody anticipated the court would do this, although I've written on this before, that smart contracts aren't really contracts at all, in any cognizable sense, right? Like, if you think about the elements of contract in detail from legal elements, right? You get to a conclusion that smart contracts really can't be contracts in that sense, right? So maybe it's an investment, but it isn't really a contract when it's
right. This is where you have to think about, like, the term smart contract was something that is kind of like an engineering term to describe what's going on in a way that makes sense, like mechanically. Here's what's going on in the software. Right. It's something that you had to coin a new term to call this new thing something. So let's call it this because it makes sense conceptually. Right. It isn't a legal term. It's more of an engineering or a design term.
And really parties need to be identified.
Say that they're the same thing
as a precursor to a contract existing, right? Like, you have to have an agreement between A and B. If A doesn't know that B exists until after B hits the button that says "find me a deal," then the contract, to the extent that it existed while the interpreter was running, and there was no chance for the parties to intervene. And if the interpreter selects an appropriate offer, then there's no connection between the offer and the buyer. So you get to this sort of like, hey, Sean.
Hey, man.
I hope you're feeling better, man. Or on the mend, at least.
Great.
I'm glad to see you.
Good to see you, Sean. We were just talking about, I don't know if you've been able to listen in, but we're talking about some Ripple case stuff. Cool. Hope that brings your spirits up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I'm gonna post another link that you guys can check out in the layer. That's an article I wrote. The problem with smart contracts. They're not really contracts at all, basically. Or something like that. I don't know what I titled it exactly, but I've gone through this before. It's kind of like they ran that way, which is weird to me. I mean, it makes sense, but it's weird to me.
Yeah, I updated everybody before we started the show. I updated the crew to let them know that Sean's been in the hospital and had a procedure, and so I'm glad you're popping in to say hi.
I got some weird. Thanks. What's that?
Yes, Sean.
Oh,
so did you hear? Are you excited about the news, man? Are you in there buying some crypto from your convalescence?
No, I was trying to, but it's tough to look down at my phone. It's hard to breathe.
Yeah, somebody in chat was saying that people can't even get into exchanges right now because there's so much activity. Can't even log in.
I bought my Bitcoin during the show, so we're good. Or at least
They've closed me out of
that.
almost every bank and almost every exchange now. I only have a couple of options anymore. So.
Okay.
Yep,
I've taken to the streets.
2017 part 2.
Somebody tried to say that they were spreading one of those whales thing where they make a statement, but there's no link or anything, Twitter things. But they said that Bank of America froze people's accounts that had crypto purchases. But I know that is probably not true because we had a Bank of America account years ago, 2017, and tried to make our first crypto purchase from it, and they stopped it before it ever even happened. So I really doubt that they allowed other people to buy crypto, and then now they're freezing their
maybe they had older accounts. Like I know we had the Chase
I'm waiting
account.
on that topical. Okay, I have to get it from the pharmacy, but I'll be back in.
We had Chase account for a while that I was surprised, and then all of a sudden, I don't know where you're gone. Corporate accounts at Chase gone. Several of the banks have closed either personally or the company down several times. And
yeah, the banks keep doing stuff that illustrate exactly why people want better money or better management of money or decentralization of the money and things like that. Yeah. Bank of America is in trouble again. They just recently had this. So they stopped doing it, but they were basically charging everybody an overdraft of $35 every single time somebody swiped a debit card and it was denied. Every single time they tried to spend money and it was denied at their bank, they charged them $35 every time. So they got sued by that. Over that, and they lost. And they just issued a statement that was like, "Okay, yeah, we stopped doing that, and now we have stopped making so much money based on overdraft fees. Our overdraft fee, what do they call it? Their gains, their profits have gone down 90% from that." And it was a very robotic statement. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't like, yeah, sorry, we were being shady and taking money from poor people, because only people who couldn't afford the transaction were those who were hit by that. But it's just another thing that keeps happening over and over again that just puts this bad taste in people's mouth about
hey guys,
giving people centralized control of the money.
You might not know this. The banks, they're evil.
Oh,
and centralized.
There's something that's something that everybody should maybe it's like, oh, it's like, yeah. I didn't know that, Joe. That the banks, they are actually evil. It's not just they're
and centralized. I mean, that's what, if we look at, if this decision is based on the influence from the Hinman emails and the big difference being that decentralization, then central banking is corrupt. And would central banking fall under this? Does this affect the USD because it is digital?
That's what everything is about, by the way.
And it's USD, centralized,
right? Yeah. One thing that I think that the overall picture is, the landscape, if you look at it, that everyone's fucking scared of right now, is that we're going to see a lot of capital outflows from banking institutions into something like crypto where they can't get it back. Because right now they're, thanks to the destruction of the value of the bond over the course of, the inflation crisis that the Fed created, they have a lot of underwater banks that are basically staying afloat because there's not been a run on them yet. But if a run started, it would take down an ass load of banks.
Also,
right?
some banks.
This may be the trigger that says, sorry, we can't process your deposit. That makes all of these banks go into troubled status. This could be a tipping point. And I think this is one of the reasons they were worried about a takeoff in the price of crypto.
That guard against that. Like in Texas, if your bank makes more than 35% of its profits from fees and fees and penalties, you're not allowed to call yourself a bank. You have to change to a financial institution or something.
Interesting. I haven't heard of that, but that's interesting.
That's
if that's your profit model. If your profit model is preying on people like that.
You have to rebrand yourself as what?
All the military banks,
a protection racket.
That's how they would do it.
Nice account you got there. Terrible something happened to it.
Yeah.
Man,
So yeah, I guess I don't know what else to say except I'm going to be interested to see what Deaton says about it. I'm going to be interested to see how this. I'm particularly interested to see how this plays out. Like, can libraries get overturned? Can they go back and say, "Hey, this isn't"? Is there anything
They could appeal it, maybe? Could they?
Yeah.
Greg?
Are
I don't
they
know if they can appeal
library-
it.
Are they like too final to do anything
It's-
about it at this point?
They're okay. First off, library was in what circuit court?
Yeah. See, this is where I don't know
New
as many
Hampshire, whatever that
details
is.
and how much of the library case was institutional versus the rest of it, that kind of thing.
If this may make, did they appeal the Supreme Court and get denied cert, or did they not go that far?
I don't think they did. I don't know that.
I
right?
think they were financially done and they stopped. But they didn't have a settlement. They had a judgment, right?
Right.
I'm thinking with the
They could
Veritasium
appeal,
thing,
potentially.
Reggie could appeal because there was no judgment. It was a settlement.
I don't know. I would think a settlement would be.
Settlements are more final.
Yeah, you agreed to it, so
Yeah.
you're done.
I guess he's off
Yeah.
for you, so
Oh,
just-
okay.
Okay.
I don't want you to have you.
But I'm not a lawyer.
Well,
Yeah,
interesting.
the thing that they could do. So here's the way that the federal courts work, and it's kind of weird. So when district court makes a ruling like this, right? They can appeal, and that appeal goes to whatever appellate court is in their judicial circuit. So let's see which we have the ruling up here. Let's take a look. If you guys don't mind pulling it up.
Yeah.
Hey.
Want to look at it?
Hey guys, I'm gonna
Yeah.
drop off.
Cool, man.
Okay.
Well, get
See
better.
you
Take
buddy.
soon.
care, Sean.
Get better.
I love that you're up and at 'em enough to be in on the good news party with us.
Yeah,
Hopefully, your
celebrate
health
with
soon
us.
matches the health of the ecosystem.
Take
Good to
care.
touch base with you. Cheers.
All right. Love you. Take care.
So let's see. Right at the very, very top.
Dave, you want to scroll or you want me to? I can pull it up actually. If you want also.
Sorry, I was busy looking at your post on Den about your comedy class. I'm sorry.
That's not important.
What are we looking for here? What
Go to the very top of the ruling.
the very top.
Let's see the
All
header.
right. Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. There we go.
Okay, so let's see. We've got United States District Court for the District of New York or Southern District. Wow, that's a huge district to win in.
So yeah, this is the Ripple one though, not the library one.
Oh, the library one. I had that one too. One moment, please.
The library one, I believe it's New Hampshire, but I don't know what number that is.
Southern
put it in
District
the
of New
chat.
York is in
All right.
the
Library.
part.
You got
They're
it?
in
New Hampshire.
All right. Here's library. The header, Securities Exchange Commission, yada yada. Here
Is this the most recent one from November
This is the
7th?
This is the one from. This is filed 7/11/23.
Yeah, that was
Okay.
2 days ago. Yep.
Okay.
So this is Second Circuit.
I know Dragon Chain is 9th. Maybe Greg, you could explain.
So yeah, I was trying to explain the
How-
circuit split problem.
Yeah, how do those relate to each other? Can they use each other's
So
decisions?
only within the Fifth Circuit right now is this ruling binding. So in New York,
Okay.
for example,
Uh-huh.
the other courts that are at the and it's binding right now. The appellate court hasn't spoken to it. So if the Fifth Circuit upholds this, right? If they appeal and the Fifth Circuit says, yeah, the judge was right, and we're going to uphold this decision, which is probably going to happen. I'm guessing there's going to be an appeal by SEC on this ruling. If that gets upheld, the Fifth Circuit or the Second Circuit will hold this as true. And then if any other circuit has a case, they might use the Second Circuit's appellate ruling as persuasive but not binding precedent, right?
Yeah.
So any other circuit doesn't have to follow it. They could. If there is a circuit split, which this would create if it gets upheld, right? Because we already had a library case in a different circuit not coming out this way. Because if they'd come out this way, or if this ruling had been the logic behind library would have won without with a straight up summary judgment. Like we've gotten dismissed because they didn't even do institutional sales, as I recall. Is that right?
I believe so, but I do not know.
I'm not familiar enough to know.
If they did institutional sales, it wasn't the bulk of what they were up to.
Right.
But I suspect, based on my knowledge of their proclivities, they probably didn't. They probably just sold.
Yeah, mostly what they
already.
were arguing was about like the ICO and stuff, right?
Right.
It was about
So
allowing anybody to come in and buy it if they want.
there's now two circuits in the federal court system that have different precedents. That is typically why the Supreme Court exists, to resolve circuit splits.
Right. Okay.
So what we've got now is an argument entry in the resolution of this at the Supreme Court level that says, well, our argument's right, that this is something new, and the way it's been structured not only avoids the law, but avoids the purpose and point of the law.
Yeah.
Such that making the law apply to it is not in the interest of justice or public policy or mom or apple pie or America, right? Like this is the wrong way to go, would be to treat this as not a new thing that changes the game, right? And that's sort of what the Second Circuit has done. That's in New York, man, like the Eastern District of New York, or Southern District of New York, right?
And so what's the Dragon Chain circuit in? What
9?
9? Okay.
Yeah.
Ninth Circuit tends liberal, so I'm going to guess they're going to come out in favor of the SEC usually.
Interesting.
But we'll see. Whatever the case is, this is a big day, because I don't think anybody was making this argument seriously until now. So, and if we can unify around it, I think we can make this the law of the land.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, far out. I guess we'll find out, won't we?
Yeah, I'm excited.
We're one step closer to
I'm
finding out.
excited in a way I haven't been excited in a while. This is optimistic.
Yeah, it's great.
So there's a guy that I'm messaging with that I'm curious what your thoughts are on this. He says this case alone does not set precedent, as individual projects can have distinct features and characteristics that may make one a security and the other not, even in the secondary market.
He is talking about the application of the familial similarity test that was created in what the heck was the name of that rule? I wrote about it in that article about Chevron deference
on Substack.
Right. There's a 90s case or 1990 case that the court, in my opinion, overreached and made it so that the SEC got to decide based on Chevron deference that anything that sort of looked like that it might apply under the Howey test but doesn't match it. I mean, arguably that case should come out differently under the logic of this case. And maybe it should have. But the situation was there. You guys ever heard of a convertible note? So the convertible note is like a thing you can do in an investment contract to get some money. Like you can essentially borrow from somebody else and then say in your note, in the loan document, that this will convert to an interest in the underlying thing as a way to accept payment on this loan if it does a certain thing, performs so well or does whatever, right? Certain conditions are met. We take equity instead of cash, right? Or it can just be a convertible note for something that is already built. Like we need more operational cash to run a thing we already finished building. So it's not a security in that case, right? Convertible notes can either be securities or not. So they created this familial similarity test so they could say, well, in this specific case, the note is a security, but in this one, it's not, because they needed to. Notes could be both. In this case, however, and I was worried this was the way the court was going to go with crypto, they circumvented the whole logic behind that. And they said, setting aside the investment part, let's look and see if there could even be a contract, which they said no to. So this doesn't actually, like, it makes it so they don't, and the way the court actually said it in the opinion, if you find the right place, it says we don't even have to reach that because we're going to settle it on this.
Yeah.
The fact that it doesn't reach that is why he's wrong. Or whoever you're talking to is wrong.
Right. Because you don't even have to get that far to make a decision.
And he's right that it doesn't set binding precedent yet, but it very well could if the Second Circuit upholds it.
It's a fifth or the second?
Second.
The second.
I'm going to run down, since I'm in New York, I'm going to run over to the circuit real quick and talk to the judge and see what I can do. I'm in that southern district. So.
And by the way, that was some of the things that we learned, like say with Dragon Chain versus what we knew about library, and particularly what we knew about Ripple, and what our legal strategy was, because there are so many different details about how various projects, the utility, the token itself, how it was sold, how it was distributed, how, whatever else there is. And you're putting this in the hands of lawyers and judges. You think about, it's like, oh boy, we hope they at least get it right in a coarse way, because they're never going to get the actual differentiators between projects. So
all right, well, I'm actually going to go run over to that court real quick, so you guys
All right, go do it.
I'll see y'all later.
Have fun.
Bye.
Thanks, John. Cool. So there will be plenty. Can you imagine already like, Lisa, you're probably already drafting your YouTube episode, right?
I very doubt. So we were planning on doing one about the SEC versus library, settling, or not settling, but having, finishing. And then because, we were the only group that submitted an amicus from the position of secondary token holders, or token holders in the tokens in the secondary market. We were the only one. And so for the judge to not even address it or say anything, it was like a missed opportunity. Was it on purpose? I don't know. All these thoughts in my head. So we were already planning on, Jeremy Hogan, he can't come for like 2 weeks. So I was like, I got to do something now, though. I wanted to talk about it now. So I tried to reach out to John Deaton. I've got to send another email. And we're going to try to have a big episode on it. Yeah, I can't.
I look forward to it. Yeah,
I'm
I'm
happy to come on and talk about it too, if you want.
Yeah, I would love to have you on. Yeah, that'd be great. I'll get with you afterwards and figure out the time, what works best and all that. But
yeah, I got my Friday cut out for me. I've got John's improv class that I want to attend remotely. I've got Friday happy hour with you. I want to see what you guys have to say about what happened this week. I'm sure there's going to be plenty to talk about.
Oh my gosh, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah. And
Joe, I'm glad we waited till next week to record.
Yes. So that was the other thing. Crypto Joe Rogan. I don't know when it'll actually air, right? But
we're going to build up a stockpile of episodes, and then we're going to drop a season.
Cool. So you're scheduled in recording.
Well, I mean, our first one is.
With
our illustrious, and I won't give anybody any complete truth on who it is, but I can tell you it's an important person who's high up in an organization that has done a lot for the show, sort of allowed and enabled it to exist. So it might or might not be a highly placed person in Dragon Chain, possibly the architect. Yeah, it's Joe.
Far out, man.
Nice. Now it's gonna be fun. I'm just hoping that it is long format, right?
Yep.
So it'll be just like anything and everything that might pop up, right?
Yeah, we're going to do basically a long form conversation, and where we don't know the answer to something because it comes up and we're not sure, we're going to look it up.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. That'd be so cool.
So there's like going to be no loose ends, and we're going to stop talking when we're like, well, big gulps, eh? Right? Like that's going to be the ending.
We just solved the world's problems. Now we can go.
Nice. There you go.
Those are my favorite formats, really. I like what's his name? Is it Carmack? Had a 5.5 hour episode with Lex Friedman. Like 5 or 5.5 hours. One of the founders of id, who made Doom and Quake and all that stuff, and they just talked about video games and technology and computers and like all this stuff, and they went on for fucking 5 hours.
Wow. And hey, can I tell you guys something?
And it was interesting the whole time, to me anyway.
Speaking of him, I had a buddy who was here in Kansas City at the time. And it was before I went to work for Lockheed and left the Midwest. And at one time, he was in a band, and his one of their big fans was one of the original Doom guys' girlfriends. And so he basically, I think I could probably get you a job there if you want one. But I was like, I'm too busy like trying to scaling and this boring stuff. I don't really know that I would want to get into gaming. And I was like, why didn't I do that back then? I could have been
I'm glad you didn't, because you wouldn't be here and doing the work that you're doing now. So
Maybe
it's
so.
pretty important.
So anyway,
Another path.
yes.
Oh man.
All right.
So I mentioned this in the comments because like, StreamYard was awesome and decided to add a YouTube integration, so now I can talk directly to people commenting, which I love. But I want to bring this up on the show and see what you guys think. What do you think the most important thing to do next is to make sure we solidify this? Because I'm standing on the idea that we need to tell the story of the why of this ruling, because that's the important part. And we're probably going to get a lot of counter messaging saying other things. And right now we're in a uniquely sort of they're on the back foot trying to counter this with some kind of narrative that's going to be legalistic. And ours is simple because it looks like the argument to 2017. Or the argument to Kickstarter, or any of the times where the SEC has stepped in to suppress regular people pooling their resources to do something great. The amazing thing here is that we have a chance to do it again, and I think we need to be telling that story. That's my 2 cents. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think about something similar to that sometimes, about what could we have done by now if this shit had not happened hadn't played out the way that it did. You know, if we could have if the money that was spent on mudflinging and tribalism and legal battles and trying to explain to people that they're wrong about how they're trying to apply the law, if all of that energy and resources could have been just spent building better worlds, where could we be? So it would be great to get back to that.
Yeah. That's what we need to do, is build those better worlds, do the things that we were supposed to be doing all this time, and be ready for it. If you aren't one of the builders and you're one of the people one of the users, be ready for it, because that's what needs to happen. And frankly, that is in the end what's going to convince all the people that forever told me. I remember guy, dealing with totally unrelated issues over dinner with someone who might have been, finance role somewhere. They would literally laugh about Bitcoin. And this was, 2012 era, right? They just like, and it was because they saw it as just another thing that they've already seen, right? They didn't understand it as a totally different technology that could be used for various things. And it's like we just need to start building the things that will convince those people that I get it now. This is a different way to build something. So
yeah, I've had similar conversations with, honestly, like a depressingly large number of conversations with people who were either anti-Bitcoin or who would sort of just be like, oh no, sorry, I'm allergic to blockchain technology. Like didn't even, which is fine, whatever. You don't care. But I've had also like hours long conversations with people who just every step of the way refused to think about it in a way that was different from how they already thought about it.
Yeah.
And the conversation wasn't
really
so much about
there.
having a conversation. The conversation was more about them defending their position instead of trying to have a conversation about it.
Right. Well, I mean, and I think that comes from like a deep current of, have you guys ever heard of the book, The Future and Its Enemies? No? Okay. So the idea that gets put forth in that book is that the real political divide for the 21st century is going to be dynamists versus stasists, people who are sort of wanting to keep things the same and or hyper plan everything so that there is only one specific thing that can happen. And then the people that want to let the world be wild and woolly and let it create what it creates. So the first being the stasists, it's like an ism for stasis, and the dynamists, right? Like Future and Its Enemies is the name of the book.
The Dr. Malcolms in Jurassic Park, the chaos theory people, the
people are afraid of chaos versus the people who embrace it.
What's the saying that that coders use? Like break it fast or break it hard, or
move fast and break things.
Move fast and break things. Yeah.
Which is just a really, really good summary of what engineering does, right? Like if you're moving forward at all, you're moving towards a state that's better than the current one.
Yeah, and that's a concept that's or not understood by not even just this, but all technology. If you look at the way today, still that the Starship launch is talked about in press, it's referred to as a failed launch. It was referred to as a failed maiden voyage, right?
Yep.
Which it was never meant to be a maiden voyage. It was meant to see where's it going to explode if we launch this thing. And we found out where it was going to explode, so we could make it
They're
better.
going to be so pissed when he starts churning out one of those a week.
Well, speaking of which, in crypto, the thing that you really need to watch for if this turns into a reopening of the gates is somewhat similar to what I said earlier. With look at who is manning these teams. That you can look at what happened with Overstock. You can look at what happened with Tesla, that there are bank connected and Fed connected short sellers that are literally just trying to kill, they want to kill SpaceX. So they're going to try to kill Tesla. They tried and tried and tried. They tried it with Overstock. They have killed numerous other entities that were some other threat. And how do they do it? They have unlimited money. There's no risk to do the short sell. They do a naked short sell. I'm not a financial expert, but it's evil BS that they're able to pretend like they have this money at risk, which they don't, in order to drop a price down, and they always win. If they lose, they still win.
Right. The short and distort strategy.
Yeah.
Right? Where you basically load up the short position and then take advantage of market momentum.
And I would say
maximize the candle downward before you sell.
Those same people, or at least same types of people, are the ones who also are responsible for, I won't name all of them, but things like Luna or FTX. Those are the same types of people that are just there for the money churn, for the number go up bullshit. They invent some strategy to position themselves. They, if they're smart, then and or if their parents are smart, then they pay off the right politicians so that they get all their charges dropped when inevitably they are captured, having failed at doing the multi-billion-dollar things.
And it sucks too, because there's a legitimate place in the market for short positions. It actually helps the price discovery system. If you think about price as just a general consensus around what a thing is worth at any given point. If you look at a market and say, I'll buy that for this, some people might pay more, some people might pay less, but a short position says, I think this is worth less than everybody else thinks it is.
Yeah.
Right. And if you're right, for actual reasons, then it serves a legitimate purpose. It helps the price actually find itself better. You'll actually have more accurate prices if you have legitimate shorts. But
by the way, there are really good, and I'm a firm believer that there are similar reasons to value insider trading, because if it gives you a faster answer in a marketplace to the reality that somebody knows something, so they take action and they're not restricted on what they can say.
And in peer-to-peer systems that trade on public blockchains, there are no insiders.
Right.
So, and that's actually probably why the SEC doesn't
Nancy.
need to be there in the way that this ruling comes out with, right?
Right.
The fact that it's public and that you can see it happening means there aren't insiders.
Yep, this is true. Wow. Amazing stuff. Excellent. What else do we only have, what? We have 12 minutes, 11 minutes or so.
We're not required to go right up against the 2-hour limit.
Were there any
just a limit.
Other stories that just got completely overridden by this awesome sea-changing news in our world, but might not? Oh yeah. Did anybody have any thoughts on the FBI getting caught out finally with their bullshit?
Which time?
Censorship.
Yeah, which story with them?
Right. The case where the judge
big guy
wrote a 150-page opinion about
I
they
didn't see
were
that.
committing a crime against America, basically.
No,
I did not see that.
What was that case? Do you know what it was about?
It's the Missouri v. Biden one.
Is it
Wow.
the one with
That's
the
right.
IRS?
Okay.
And the Bidens?
This is so Missouri v. Biden. If I can
Interesting.
find a copy of it.
Because I know that there was a lot that was potentially forthcoming about that, but I didn't see anything actually.
Yeah, the stay that they asked for got denied, and it got denied kind of with a slap.
Well, and that, by the way, the other side of many of these things is no matter what happened with the Ripple case and some of these others, that there's a potential for that West Virginia EPA case to come up and just smack any of that stuff down because they can't write new laws, essentially, which is what they've been doing and what Gensler has admitted to doing, which is like, I'm going to interpret it this way.
Wasn't that wild to hear him say that to Congress? We are who decides what the law is, and I was like,
but then he wouldn't give an answer.
Yeah,
when
the
they
guy's a
asked him,
fucking crook, rat, weasel, whatever freaking animal you want to make him out to be. He's a horrible, objectively evil person.
No, he's a human, and so that's why decentralized tech has to be designed to guard against those types of humans because they exist. He's an example of the type of person that exists.
Yeah, even the best. You can't trust even the best human with an ability to overrule your right to free speech or free markets. So yeah.
Is that the most dangerous idea that we've had in a long time as humans? Yeah, but what if you didn't have to trust anybody?
It's dangerous for some people and some pocketbooks. That's for damn sure. And some histories too, right? So
this one guy I was following when this morning when I was like trying to do a little bit more to catch up on the Hinman emails, see if there was any new ideas coming out about it, whatever, before we jumped on the show. And this one guy was talking about, I got down in his thread and he was connecting that. He said that really that Prometheum coming out and admitting that they have CCP funders tied to FTX, and then showed all this connection with it going back into politicians' pockets and all that it kind of, the Prometheum was kind of like where it was frustrating because obviously they were the sweetheart or the darling, they got the darling deal or whatever they called it, to say, oh, look, but you can follow the rules at the SEC. So they got the license, but it actually exposed that it's being funded by the CCP.
No, I mean, it's not to find illicit bullshit and all of this, right?
And it is an interesting. It's an interesting to take that. The more you find out, the more you have to scratch your head and say, why are we prioritizing adversarial nations over our own builders and our own creators and our own people?
Well, I mean, at the same time, we are literally telling. Where was it? They were publishing something about how, like, I forget who was saying it, but somebody in an official position was saying we need to get realistic bipartisan support around the idea that we need to make serious cuts to U.S. domestic programs. Like, this is happening concurrently with them shipping all of this money overseas. Like, I want to ask this question, and Dave, this is no insult to your former department, but this is a really great example. I'm not picking on the Navy specifically. I'm just picking on the size of its objects.
There's stuff to pick on.
Aircraft carriers would you have to decommission to save Social Security?
The interesting thing that I saw when I was in was
the bases closed.
What I would do? Can I tell you something? Can I break in here right? Because I have a kind of an odd answer to that. I wouldn't decommission any of them, but I would turn them all on DC. I would freaking use them to freaking save the Social Security system. Get rid of the Fed. Get rid of DC.
The expense thing is interesting because there are people who have failed at reducing we'll call it the proliferation of America's world police throughout the world by other means and have resorted to trying to just make it too expensive to do that. In other words, like one of the things was the Montgomery GI Bill got a massive upgrade, a really, really expensive upgrade while I was still in. So this would have been somewhere between, I was in 2003 to 2012. So somewhere in there. It's the post 9/11 GI Bill. And part of that was not only to take care of the troops, that kind of thing, give benefits that are more robust than what Montgomery GI Bill provided, but also to stop hiring and sending so many troops overseas to invade foreign countries. because they were trying to make it so fucking expensive to take care of the troops that maybe they would stop, like that they just would hamstring them financially so that they couldn't afford to do it. That kind of thing. You know, that was part of the reasoning for it, was just to make troops more expensive,
Really,
make personnel more expensive, so that we would maybe send less of them. So there's efforts to make shit more expensive with that logic too.
Huh. That's interesting, man. And yet, even with whatever upgrades they've had, they still can't get anyone to join, right? Like the recruitment.
There's issues.
Crazy.
There's issues. Yeah. I mean, I sort of saw the writing on the wall as one of the reasons that I left voluntarily. I didn't get kicked out or anything. I, was coming up on my 10-year mark and was like, well, I'm halfway to, the 20-year, which is a retirement mark for the military. And I knew that if I re-enlisted one more time, I was going to make myself round it out, So I was like, get out now, because it seems like it's not really going where I thought it was going to go. But a lot of it was just like, I felt like I was in a Fortune 500 company and people were not, there was no camaraderie. It was a lot of cutthroat, like things look good on paper. Not to say that isn't, that people aren't very capable and that our military isn't. Obviously it is effective, but there's a lot of shit going on that seemed, wasteful, and it seemed absurd, and it's hard to justify. And even the ships I was on, every single ship that's built now is like a flagship, super expensive. It's capable of doing anything.
Don't those come from black budgets?
The black budget thing is a little bit different. What all I ever saw that even was related to that I could verify was, you hear people talk about really expensive hammers and toilet seats. Why do you need to spend $5,000 on a hard drive that you can buy off the shelf for 50 or 100 or 500 bucks? So there's definitely a lot of financial waste. I don't know where that goes, whether that's just somebody's brother who happens to make this one particular type of screw, so they included it in the schematics and priced it high, or if there's actually some sort of budget that goes into. I would imagine that the black budget stuff comes more from like CIA is self-funded to an extent by having investments that they can just profit from and not have to have budget from Congress or from the military. So I don't know. Black budget is very black. We don't know where it comes from or how much of it exists. Right. Anyway, there's my little rant about the expenses and the overages of the military. As we're 2 minutes from our hard stop. Sorry, I went on a little bit. Well, I'll save it for Crypto Joe Rogan.
Cool. Yeah, we're gonna get you on too. Lisa, you got to come on as well.
I would love to.
I feel like there's like a whole iceberg of story about you that I've never gotten to ask you about. So I think that should be a pretty fun episode.
I'm an open book, so happy to share.
I guess we gotta wrap up then. It looks like.
Yeah.
Oh, we better do it quick. Jeez.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
All
right. Bye.
Great, guys. Thanks a bunch. I'll see you.
It's a great day for America.